In this training video, we're going to go over real quickly the MarkerSet properties. This lists the properties and functions that are saved into the .mars file, otherwise known as a MarkerSet. So a MarkerSet is more than just a list of markers and their linkages. It includes definitions that are relevant to model definitions and skin settings and things like that. So if we're in the top of the MarkerSet properties window, you'll see a number of different descriptions of the properties. So for example, this is the name of the MarkerSet itself, which is separate from the name of the file. So this is very important. So a user could change name up here to whatever name they feel is appropriate. But in order to change the file name, then you simply go into Save As, or you can go to Windows Explorer. You could save it there accordingly. Skeleton Engine allows the user to change the skeletal model from Skeleton Builder to Calcium Solver, SimCalcium, or Hybrid Skeleton, and the differences between these three skeletons are highlighted in a separate video. Rotation order is just the order in which the skeletal segments are calculated in terms of angle definitions, and this can be set either here or programmatically through Sky. Bone axis is the axis is defined as a longitudinal axis of a particular bone segment. So in this case, the Z is defined as the long axis of a bone. So for example, we scroll down here, the bone axis for the, let's say this is the forearm, would be Z, and the X is pointing medial laterally, and AP would be the Y axis. Skin settings, this is if a user wants to apply a particular skin file. This could be an FBX file, for example, that is developed in a separate application or a separate rendering software, and apply it to the bone segments here. And this is described elsewhere in a separate video. The settings for the skeleton builders settings are can be found here. This is if a person wants to fill gaps within the actual data. So you can either set that to true or false. If the user, or I'm sorry, if the model utilizes either a calcium only skeletal model or a hybrid, which is a hybrid of the skeleton builder and calcium models, then all the settings that are associated with calciums can be set here. These are the general settings for that. The individual's segmental definitions, however, are defined separately here in these tabs down here, which I'll go over in a sec. So each one of these tabs represent areas in which a user can either view or modify particular segments related to markers, virtual markers, links, segments, these are the skeletal segments, rigid subsets, and unnamed markers. So for markers, you can see here, these are all the names of the markers in a particular marker set. A user can change the name. They could change some of the properties down here in terms of the color. Optional means whether or not the user wants to have the marker to be an optional part of the template that's defined within the marker set. And then scrolling down to, going to virtual markers, these list all the virtual marker definitions. So in order to edit a virtual marker, just double click here or right click here, edit. And you can change the definitions depending on whether you want a 3 marker value, ratio, 2 marker value, ratio, 1 marker value, fixed, or EMR. All of these are explained in detail in a separate video as well. In order to add a virtual marker, you can also add here. Just right click anywhere on this gray area and click one of these options to define a virtual marker. Links. Links, as explained in a separate video, define the linkages between segments. So click here. I'm going to turn off the skeleton so you can see the links themselves. And so these are the linkages between markers on a marker set. This is used when creating or extending a template so that Cortex can automatically identify these markers in real time or in the live mode. So these are all the linkages that are defined here. And so in order to create one, to create links for template, this will bring up this window. You can choose the color of the link, and then you can simply add, I'm just gonna, for sake of argument, link between the hand marker or the wrist marker and the shoulder, for example. And in order to delete it, just click on it, click on that, and hit delete. That will delete that particular links. So anyway, these are all the list of the links that are saved in the MarkerSet. Segments, if there is a skeleton engine defined, in this case we have a hybrid skeleton, all of those segments are clearly defined here. So if you click on one, you can see down here, scroll up, the general properties for the skeletal segment. If it's a hybrid, then you'll see both the calcium properties as well as the SKB or skeletal properties here. And so you can scroll through each one and modify as needed. If you want to add a new one, just click here and type new segment, for example. And under new segment, this is where you can modify the specific properties for that particular segment. Rigid subset, this is something that's typically used in linkages or to help Cortex identify the markers in real time. So a rigid subset, for example, insert here, you can choose the number of markers that define a particular rigid subset in the marker set. So in this case, we'll choose shoulder, offset, and right shoulder, and we'll call this subset, I don't know, upper trunk. So that in live mode, Cortex will then use the relative distance between these three markers to define the quote upper trunk rigid subset. And so if the stretches between the two, or the distances between the two, fall within a certain range, then it will define that rigid subset so that it can Cortex can more easily define all of these markers in real time. And that's MarkerSet properties.